Hi, I'm Caroline. Thank you for joining me for some yoga today. Today we're going to focus on yoga for cycling. And I've been cycling a little bit more recently. You maybe cycle every day or even cycle competitively. And I've really noticed how my shoulders feel it after I've been back on my bike. So if you imagine on a bike, you're gripping with your fists. You may even be just curving your spine around a little bit, depending on the bike you're using. And then that can create some tightness and stiffness in the shoulders and the upper back. And so what we're going to do is concentrate a little bit here on opening up the shoulders, the chest for the breath, bringing some mobility to the upper body. But also we use our quads a lot in cycling and the whole leg, as well as the psoas muscle, which is connecting the lower part of the back and the pelvis to the legs as well. So we'll be working very simply through the whole body, and it's just a short session to relieve any tightness that's been created from a short or a longer cycle. We are going to use a strap or a yoga belt, and if you don't have one of these, there'll be an adaptation to do the pose without, but also if you've got a men's tie to hand or a dressing gown belt, or even just a regular belt you'd wear with jeans or trousers, that can work as well. So we'll pop that aside to begin with, pop it out the way for now, and then we're going to come into a lying down position on our side. So it doesn't matter which side you start with. I'm going to lie on my left side to begin with. My knees are going to be bent. It's really more about finding a comfortable position for yourself. You may want a cushion for under your head. My head's going to be lying on the floor, so that angle might not feel comfortable for you. So if you've got a cushion or even a yoga block, you can use it just to raise your head off the ground. And then I've got my arms in front of me. There's a softness in the elbows, palms are on top of each other. And we're going to make some circles with the top arm. So very gently, slow circles with the top arm. You'll notice I've got a softness in the elbow, so we're trying not to lock the elbow. And I'm taking the hand, the arm behind me. So making it a relatively slow, mindful movement. We're just trying to bring some mobility to the shoulder joint. And you might find you get to a spot and you just feel that you can do a little bit more there, a little bit more stretch, find some more length, some more space before you bring it all the way back around. And then we'll come back the opposite direction. So 5 in one direction and 5 in the other. And if it is particularly tight, keep that softness in the elbow, maybe increase the bend in the elbow, but ensuring you're breathing in and out through the nose. And then coming back to center. And now we need to move over to the other side. So you're changing your position, lying on the other side. Make sure you grab your pillow or cushion if you're using one for under the head. And then a similar stance, making sure you're comfortable in your knees and your hips here. So again, you might want a little bit of padding under the hips. My palms start on top of each other. And then I'm going to make some gentle circles. First of all, going behind the body. And then we'll reverse the direction. So we need to have that softness in the elbow. Remembering it to make it your dynamic yoga movement. So what I mean by that is, if it doesn't feel right, changing it so it does. Finding that adjustment to make it feel good for you. And then if you come across a tightness, maybe just taking a breath there, bringing some space to that area. And once you've done 5 in one direction, we're going to change direction. So 5 in the opposite direction. And maybe noticing a difference between both sides. We're always going to be a little bit tighter on one side. We're dominant on one side, right-handed or left-handed. So just bringing your awareness to that without any judgment. And then coming back to center once again. We're going to come into a lying down position. Knees are going to be bent. I'm just going to grab my strap here. So have the strap to hand so we can use it when we need it, or the belt or whatever prop you're using if you're using one, and coming to a lying down position. Knees are bent, making sure again the lower back feels comfortable. So you may want to just play a little bit here with where the feet are. They can be a little bit further away. Sometimes that gives a bit more support for the lumbar spine. They can be a little bit wider. Just making sure the position feels right for your body. Ensuring the toes are pointing forwards, the feet are flat on the ground, feet are parallel, and then allowing the shoulders to soften down here. So finding your evenness or your balance in your semi-supine position. We're going to take the hands in the air, we're going to make fists. So it's almost like we're riding a bike at this point. But I want you to imagine you're on a motorbike. So what I mean by that is we're going to move our hands and our fists to stretch our wrists out. So we're going to imagine we're revving a motorbike. So we're just taking the knuckles forwards a little. So you'll notice it's quite a small movement. Just a few times, alleviate any tightness in the wrists. And then we're going to take that movement to the left and to the right. It's a very simple movement, it's quite small. And then making some circles. So making some circles with the fingers, almost like a finger dance. And with the wrists, bringing some movement there to the whole hand. And then bringing the arms down. We'll take the right arm across the body and then very gently taking the left hand to hold on to the right upper arm. So again, just increasing some mobility, a little bit of a stretch there in the shoulders. Maybe you feel it in the triceps and biceps, but again, there's no right or wrong way to feel this. If you imagine we're doing a little stretch off after we've been for a cycle. And then gently release that and we'll come to the side. So bringing the left hand across the body. And gently releasing. We'll take the arms out to the side. The thumbs are facing up towards my head. And then I'm going to turn my thumbs down. My palms are facing down. So bringing a rotation into the arms and the shoulders. So palms facing up and palms facing down. I'm doing that a couple more times. And then bringing the hands back down towards the sides of the body or the belly. We're going to begin now by hugging the right knee in. So take the right knee in, give it a hug. Maybe this is enough for you. Maybe you'd like to pull it in a little bit further. Just making sure nothing has changed with the breath. So remember in yoga, we think about sthira sukha, steadiness and ease. So you want to find a steadiness in this movement and an ease for the breath. Keeping hold of the right knee with the right hand, I'm gently taking my right knee out to the side. We want to try and keep the pelvis level here, the hips level, so it's not going too far. Creating a little bit of space here. In the inner thighs, we're working with the hip joint. And slowly bringing that knee back in. This is where you're going to grab your prop if you're using one. And we're going to loop it around the ball of our foot. Ensuring the shoulders stay soft. And then we're going to reach up through the heel. So we're going to imagine we're reaching up through the heel, keeping a bend in the knee to begin with. And that's where we are. If you're not using a strap or a belt in any way, you can hold or support the leg just behind the leg. Or wherever you are, just check the shoulders aren't up around the ears. You want to keep that space for the neck. Allow the shoulders to soften. And once you're here, maybe this is enough. Maybe you're here and that's enough. Wherever you are, you're reaching through the heel. If you are able to straighten the leg a little more, know that it's safe to do so because the leg, well, the knee isn't weight bearing in this position. So we're bringing some length to the hamstrings, calf muscles, all the way down there. From here, I'm going to take the belt in my right hand, or my prop in my right hand, and I'm taking my right foot out to the right side. We're only taking it as far as we can without the hips coming off the mat or the ground. So thinking about that left hip, that left glute staying glued down to the ground, reaching through the heel. Remembering to breathe, especially if there's tightness. And then bringing the foot back up to center. Changing the grip, so I'm taking my left hand onto the belt and taking the right foot across the body towards the left-hand side. We're getting the IT band here, so if you cycle a lot, this could be very tight. You might find that the IT band is screaming at you. If that's the case, bring it back just a little bit. Make sure you are able to find space for the breath. We want to keep the right hip down, the right hip glute, or the hip and the pelvis down on this side. And then slowly coming back up to center and releasing. Take a moment to rejig everything. That right leg should feel a little bit longer now. And we'll do exactly the same thing on the left-hand side. So have the belt, you can lie it over the belly or towards the side of the body. We're going to draw that left knee in to begin with. So both hands on the knee and gently drawing it in. And remember, just bringing it in a little might be enough for you. You might want to really hug the knee into the chest. So working with your body here, you can bring gentle movements to it, breathing in, breathing out. Taking the left hand onto the left knee and taking the left knee out to the side. So waking up the hip flexors, the inner thigh. And gently bringing it back in. From here, this is where we're going to loop our belt round the ball of our foot. So wherever you are, looping the belt around the ball of the foot. Ensuring the shoulders are soft, knee is bent to begin with, and reaching through the heel. So imagine trying to get the heel up high. And once you've found your position, maybe you're able to straighten the leg a little bit more. Remember, you're working with your body. So wherever you are is absolutely fine. That's benefiting your body. Just ensuring that heel is lifting. Remembering to breathe through any tightness. It can sometimes help to imagine you're directing the breath to the area that feels tight or stiff. And then from here, I'm taking both ends of my prop, my belt, in my left hand. So I can take the left leg out towards the left-hand side, still reaching through the heel. Coming up to center, changing the hands and bringing the left hand across the body. So remember, this is the IT band. We only want to go as far as we can without lifting the whole of the left side of the hip off the ground. Still reaching through the heel. And working with any tightness you're feeling in that area. And then slowly coming up to center, releasing the foot. And we'll give both knees a hug. Now we'll move the belt out of the way. Just release any tightness in the lower back from here. And then we can come up onto our hands and knees. So just taking a moment, rolling over onto one side to gently push yourself up to a seated position. So we're going to come into cat-cow, which you're probably familiar with. We want the hands spread under the shoulders. Thinking about the inner elbows pointing in. So we want that rotation inwards on thumb side and to the wrist, and an external rotation outwards in the shoulders. So we're thinking about the weight distribution over the hands being even. Bring the shoulders away from the ears, shoulder blades together. The knees are under hips or roughly under hips. From here, we're going to breathe in, tip the sitting bones up towards the sky. Breathing out to curl the spine round. The gaze is going towards the knees. Breathing in to look forwards, belly towards the floor. Breathing out to arch the spine. So bringing a little bit of space here in between the vertebrae, stretching out the back. So if you imagine, you're often in the same position when you're cycling, holding the handlebars in that saddle. So bring a little bit of movement to the back. So just 5 rounds of this. And then if you need to, take a moment to relieve the wrists. You can do that on your elbows. So a little bit sort of safer, or I shouldn't say safer, more comfortable maybe for the wrists if you've got sore wrists. And then I'm going to take my hands out a little bit further, and we're going to work with the hips now. So again, you can drop into the elbows if you need to. And I'm going to make some circles with my hips. I'm going to exaggerate the circles, and a bit like the arm movement we began with, if you come into an area that feels a little bit tight, it just feels good to stay there. Take a moment there, take a breath. We're going to do 5 circles in one direction and 5 in the other. And remembering, if the knees feel a little bit sore, add some padding. You can fold your mat in half, get a blanket or a couple of cushions for the knees. Softness in the elbows at all times. Try not to lock the elbows. And once you come into your 5 on both sides, take a moment. We're going to come into extended child's pose. So the big toes are coming together, the knees are wide apart, and the elbows are soft here. So the elbows are on the ground. Our gaze is towards the floor. My glutes are in contact with my heels. This is where we want to be ideally. If you've got tightness in the hips and the knees, you might want to adapt it slightly. You can have a little bit of height, you can have a blanket just in here or some cushions. That can take a little bit of pressure off the knees. You can have a bit of padding under your ankles. So just playing with this pose and making it work for your body. Softening the gaze, focusing on the breath. And then from here, maybe you are able to come a little further. Just taking the fingers away from the body, stretching through the pads of the fingers, allowing the shoulders to soften, and then maybe the head does reach all the way to the floor. You can keep the head in line with the neck a little higher up, and maybe put some support under the forehead. And then very gently creeping the fingers back towards the body. And just to finish off, we're going to stretch into our feet. Feet do a lot of work when we're cycling as well. So we're going to be stretching off the tops of the feet here and the toes as well. So I often describe this as a sort of fist on either side. Fists can be really helpful in lifting the knees off the ground, and that's what it's going to look like. Lifting the knees off and we're stretching the tops of the feet. So you might be here, you might be on fingertips. We want to draw the shoulders away from the ears. You might be just there. You might have a little bit of height, a yoga block or a couple of books to use your hands as a kind of traction on and come there. Or you might have the flexibility already and we're coming into almost a balance. And if you're there, the hands can come on to the thigh muscles. So stretching the ankles, coming into whichever version of that you feel comfortable doing. The more you do this, obviously the further up, further or the higher you're able to come. And it's really good because the feet do so much for us. We want the strength there, but we also want a little bit of flexibility to avoid any injury as well. And then very gently coming back down towards the ground. And then I'm going to tuck my toes. So tucking the toes under, I physically have to do this because they don't want to do it themselves. So I'm tucking the toes under and spreading the toes. Now again, this can be really strong if you're not familiar with doing this often. So I'm going to come onto my fists here, just as a little bit kinder for my wrists if I come onto my fists there, and that might be enough just here. I've got to remember to give my neck some space, so drawing the shoulders away from the ears. And then maybe you can sit on your heels. If you're going and gasping for breath, come forwards. Remember Sthira Sukha, that steadiness and ease. We want to find steadiness in the posture and ease for the breath. Finding the length in the spine if you are sitting back on your heels. And then gently releasing the toes. And so maybe you come to a kneeling position or a standing position here. We're going to bring our hands behind our back. We're going to clasp our hands and we're going to gently guide the knuckles towards the ground. Try not to push your chest forward too far. Trying to get into the pectoral muscles here a little. Deltoids. And then gently releasing the hands. And we're going to come up into a forward fold to finish off. So tucking the toes, bringing the feet parallel. Feet are parallel. I've got my feet hip distance apart. You may prefer to have them together or a little bit further apart than that, a little bit wider. Toes pointing forwards. I'm reaching the sitting bones up to the ceiling. So I've still got a bend in my knees, but my sitting bones are reaching up towards the sky. The crown of the head is reaching towards the ground. The fingertips reach the floor. You can have them on the floor. Maybe opposite elbows feels better for you. Just think about the space for the neck as well. Shoulders away from ears. If you're able to straighten the legs a little more, please do. Just always keeping that micro bend in the knee so the knees are safe. And then from here to come up, we're going to bend into the knees a little more, bring our hands onto our hips and gently come up to standing. So that was just a really simple sequence. I think it's around 20 minutes to stretch the body off after a cycle. And that's actually what I did a few weeks ago when I got back on my bike. And that's what felt good, to bring some space to the hips, the shoulders, the legs, the back, sort of all the way from the top to the toes after a long cycle. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Please do click the thumbs up if you did, and click subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me as they're uploaded. I'm Caroline. It's bye from me for now.